Welcome to the Behind the Bits podcast. Your host, Scott Curtis, wants to learn everything he can about stand-up comedy and take you along for the ride. Scott and his guests talk serious about comedy in every episode. Behind the Bits will uncover knowledge from different perspectives on subjects such as writing and performing stand-up comedy, as well as booking shows and the comedy life. If you're thinking about becoming a stand-up comic, already in the comic game, or a comedy nerd, Behind the Bits is the show for you. Now, let's get Behind the Bits.
Hey, BTB buddies, it's me, Scott, and I am looking for all the coolest independent podcasts, and guess what? I found one called Silicon Angels, and I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm going to let the creators of Silicon Angels tell you about it because I actually liked it so much that I hunted them down, I trolled them on Facebook, and made them do a quick interview with me. So I've got Zack Wiseman and Dylan Terry with me, the creators of Silicon Angels. How are you guys doing?
Oh, doing very well. How are you?
Great.
I'm doing great.
I tell you what, I found your podcast, and I am looking for these independent podcasts to listen to when I do a 3.5 mile run every day, and I have decided, you guys know when you do a podcast that you forget to listen to anybody else's podcast because you're putting all your creative energy into yours. So I wanted to make an effort to do that. So instead of listening to my Judas Priest and Iron Maiden while I'm running, I am listening to podcasts like yours. And I've been listening to a lot of interview podcasts. I've been listening to a lot of shoot the shit type podcasts. Mm-hmm. And I was really looking for something that was, it was a fiction podcast. It was serialized. And somehow I happened on Silicon Angels, and I'm like 4 episodes in, and the thing's not. So,
okay, all right.
Can you guys give me a synopsis of what it's about?
Yeah. Yes. So, Silicon Angels is a science fiction comedy podcast presented as if it is discovered audio logs by a character named Simon Vanderbland, who's kind of a recluse. He's a nerd. He found a secondhand PC from a friend who runs an electronics store, and in there he found tech logs, tech support calls from a company named Silicon Angels that seems to be a specialized robotics manufacturer and service provider. And the initial thrust of the podcast is that this is just him finding out what the creation of these logs entailed. And then as the podcast continues, there becomes a sinister underplot and sort of we follow the actual technicians, and it gives each of them a storyline through that is set against the backdrop of this company that nobody has any record of existing, but very clearly existed in a large scale at some point. Yeah.
That's perfect, yeah.
And the product of the company, Silicon Angels, isn't really, it's hinted at in the first couple episodes, mm-hmm. and you can draw your own conclusions. I'm on the 4th one now. By that one, you know what it is. And mm-hmm. So what's the product?
It is sex robots. Yeah, the majority of the calls are customers of a sex robot company that have specialized issues with something and think that an IT person can help. So it is all just the logs of an IT mm-hmm. person trying to deal with humans that are trying to deal with a computer.
Yeah, it's really good. It's funny, but I can tell there's a lot of writing going into it. So what did you guys do how did you brainstorm this, and what did you do to put this together? Because this is obviously scripted, and there's obviously a lot of work to go into it, because when you think about doing a 30-minute podcast, and like you're doing radio, what is that, 4,000, 5,000 words per?
Well, so the idea came about when Zack approached me one day at our day job, and he asked me, what do you think the help desk for a sex robot company sounds? What kind of issues do you think people call in for? And I'm like, I got no idea, but it sounds like something we can expand on. And then we had the idea to turn it into like a near future sci-fi concept. What if it's beyond what our capabilities are now, to the point where robotics are semi-autonomous? Uh-huh. And then we used it as a way to examine some relationship issues, some education issues, some anatomy stuff. Interesting, the scripts are actually, when we were coming up with episode concepts, we would think what kind of calls might be funny for this particular episode. Later in the show, we have one where it's like, what if a magician sawed one in half and he loses the lower half? What if someone thinks that theirs has a missing piece? And that became like a very classic kind of joke that people tend to throw about. And then we would have, I call them touchstone scripts. The entire show is not actually scripted out word for word.
Okay.
A lot of the scripts are 1 or 2 pages, and they will have the intro and the outro and certain lines that we know that we want people to hit. Like they'll be in bold or something.
Yeah.
And then for most of it, there will be bullet points or specific lines that we want people to circle back around to. But for the most part, our voice actors are improvising a lot of these calls.
Oh, cool.
Outside of the intro, outside of the outro, and outside of the technical stuff, a lot of the actual conversations are improv. And we've been incredibly fortunate to find people who are skilled enough to take what we put down on the page and spin that out into a 5 to 10 minute fake phone call.
Oh, yeah. It's really good. And I was really impressed I dove into the first episode, and I was really impressed by the way that drew me in. Even though it didn't give me the full story, it drew me in enough. I'm like, okay, I got to find out what this is all about. And then I went to the second one, kept going. So you did create the tension enough that it kept me going. So I was really impressed with that. How many voice actors do you have?
So in our roster, we have 18 people, including me and Dylan. Dylan is actually Simon. He's the one who comes across all of the information. But yeah, between us, we have 18 people. So we do 2 recordings a week, and then we see, hey, who can show up to this recording? And then with those groups, Dylan and I come up with ideas. And then like Dylan says, he puts together one of these touchstone scripts, and then we present them to our actors. Hey, who thinks that this is worth diving into or seeing what the results of this is? And then we'd take 2 or 3 takes of each call and then really examine, hey, this is the joke that we're trying to achieve. How do we get there through technical support?
And so a lot of it comes through in Zach's editing. Like I handle a lot of the initial writing and like conceptualization, and then Zach handles a lot of the production aspects. So he's the guy who has to comb through all of our chatter, all of our stops and starts, all of our dead air, and really assemble these calls into something that you're going to hear on the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is getting cool. And the thing is, since we have so many actors and we don't really know who can show up to a recording, we actually have about 6 shows that are going on at one time that we produce and keep doing. So we have multiple shows. So we'll get there and say, okay, guys, we have 4 scripts for Silicon Angels. We have 2 ideas for this podcast. We have 2 ideas for this magic show that we're working on. And we have our TV show on Sundays. So we need a couple ideas for that. Yeah, it's a very big kind of group effort that me and Dylan try to corral.
Yeah. It's so cool to find stuff like this and see the people who are behind it, because everybody that does a podcast really wants to do something that is art. They want to do something that is consumable, that inspires people, that entertains people or something like that. And man, there are so many of them. There's a lot of shitty ones out there. And trust me, I found them. I don't search out the purveyors of the shitty stuff. I only do the good stuff, and you got about 10 minutes to get me, and you guys got me. So I applaud you for that.
Hey, thank you.
You know, one of my favorite ones on what I've listened so far. I've been in the IT world for a long time, and the dude with his password and space on the password, I don't know how you came up with that, but that is so real. It's scary, and it actually brought up like PSTD stuff for me.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Excellent. Yeah, we interviewed a couple people that worked in the IT department. Like, hey, what are some of the annoying things that only really IT people would know? And then we put that into what is the robot joke we're trying to make? And then we tried to get the overall story arc of what the IT the tech themselves is trying to get to. So it's pretty elaborate the way that Dylan wove these stories and scripts together. But yeah, it worked out really well. And we definitely wanted to make sure that we weren't just a chatterbox kind of podcast, which, you know, is hard to do. So the people that can do it well, that's successful. That's great. But we wanted to show that we were creators of content and trying to build worlds. So that was one of the real main focuses for Silicon Angels, would be a pushing thing for us to do.
I have a writing degree, so when Zach approached me about the idea of starting like a podcasting group, I was like, we could do one. Like, we both like movies. We both are like, fine. Like, we could do like a roundtable, just unstructured discussion thing. And then he hit me with the idea about that, and I go, let's do like a radio drama, but presented by tech support calls, because it's a format that is uniquely suited to podcasting.
Yeah. We wanted to find things that were audio specific and maximize that thing. And I recently moved to Colorado, which is where I met Dylan, but I lived back on the East Coast and I did a lot of stand-up comedy in Philadelphia and DC and stuff. So I was learning and trying to create these stories or things that I could talk about instead of just telling one-line jokes. So then when I met Dylan and his really interesting way of creating stories and structuring my wild ideas into something that can be told, it worked out very well. And Silicon Angels is the crux of that.
When I told Zach that I had a degree in creative writing with a minor in film studies, he looks at me and goes, "Okay, you're exactly who I need." And I'm like, all right.
Oh, no doubt, because a stand-up comic is so great with coming up with the punchline.
Mm-hmm.
They need somebody to write all the other stuff. So.
Yeah. And that's what it is.
Partnership has been working so well.
Yeah, I go to Dylan every single morning. I text him like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, what about this guy and this robot and this thing? And then they attract each other and he goes, okay, I'll have these scripts to you by noon. I'm like, oh, that's so great. And then we corral some people like, hey, we have these ideas. Who can come over and record this real fast? And then we try to, get a regular.
We have 4 or 5 people who consistently show up and are willing to give us their voice very regularly, partially because they are voice actors, partially because they've been musical theater people, partially because they've taken classes where they are doing acting. And so we cast them as the techs, partially because they are reliable, because they show up, and partially because they have the ability, they have voices. So not only can they give each tech a voice, but they are also there if we need to fill in a caller. It might be surprising sometimes, but like Harry the tech is also like Wilford the old man from the first few episodes.
Yeah.
And also fills in, I think Harrison's been on every episode at least 2 or 3 times with different voices.
Yeah, Harrison's probably 20 characters in that show throughout the whole season. So
I think I counted out, and it comes out to about 15 or so voices he does for the entire across the span of the show.
He's talented, but they also see that what me and Dylan are trying to do. Like, we came to them early on and said, hey, we have these ideas. We want to put together this podcast, go to a YouTube thing, create a show, and that's our development, and then get to a production company, which is what we're trying to get to now. So we do have a couple of things in works for when we can get to producing things visually. And then obviously through IBM TV with giving us a talk show called Talking Upstream, it's been really cool being able to develop and have people see us develop our stories and watch that too. So yeah, it's been a pretty good journey so far.
Yeah, you guys it's great stuff. Like I said, you hooked me immediately. And I think I listened to the first 4 episodes just about back to back. So two of them on my run, and then another 2 when I was actually supposed to be working. So
all right, glad to hear.
That's cool. Yeah, right on.
I'm in it now. It's like Twin Peaks for me. I got to finish it up. So
yeah, there's two more episodes, and then we're done.
Comparison.
Yeah.
I will tell you on that.
Oh boy, Twin Peaks. That's great.
Yeah. And, it's getting to the point where I'm starting to look for certain tech support people to show up because I'm getting into their life a little bit, and they're
perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So you're doing a great job.
Oh man, right on.
Appreciate that.
Where can folks find Silicon Angels on the net and on all the podcast apps?
So we are on every podcast app that is available. We're on Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes. We're on Spotify. But you can find everything that we do on our website, which is somenobodies.com. That's where we have all of our audio, all of our videos, all of our current projects, ones we're coming up with as well. So everywhere, Silicon Angels. If you Google it, you'll probably find it, or just somenobodies.com. That's the easiest way to find everything.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for letting me stalk you and have you on the show, because you've got something good here, and I'm definitely going to keep tuning in. And
all right.
People who listen to my show, I think, are the type that would really like your show. So hopefully we'll get you some new listeners there.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, really. Right on. Thank you, Scott.
It was great meeting you, Zach and Dylan.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. It's Behind the Bits podcast, and I'm here with Kyle Ruff from the Steamboat Comedy. Steamboat is actually a city in Colorado.
Yeah, it's Steamboat Springs.
Yeah,
Steamboat for short.
Is that a ski town?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay,
definitely a ski town. It's way up. It's at northwest Colorado. So you leave Denver, you drive northwest for about 3 hours, and then you end up in a little valley with a ski hill and a bunch of rednecks.
Well, that's cool. So I found you by one of the things I'm doing is looking for independent podcasts that they don't have to center around comedy, but I kind of look at the comedy ones, and I
Sure.
found yours because we had a mutual guest, Mark Masters. He was one of my first guests, and I think he was one of your first guests. And I just started listening, and it seems like you guys got a really cool scene going on there. And I guess we decided to interview each other because I think you're like me. I never get to talk about myself on my podcast because they go too long, and I don't want to start talking about myself. I just like to let the guests talk. So if we talk to each other, maybe we'll our listeners will get to know a little bit about each other.
Yeah, sounds good. I did do one episode that kind of focused on me. It was funny. Our Miles Sanchez, one of the other Steamboat comics, early on, I think it's probably like episode 5 or something like that. He's like, "Hey, I think we should do maybe just podcasts where we like feature each one of us." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good." And he goes, "You go first." I was like, "Oh, well, okay."
Yeah.
So there's one episode that's kind of about me, but just for the sake of us getting to know each other, we can kind of talk a little more about it. And I can kind of fill you in on the Steamboat comedy scene, because it's been kind of a cool thing that I'm linked with. I'm trying to adjust my shirt so you can see my logo. There it is.
Yeah, it's really neat, and I like the website, and I like what you're doing there, and especially for a fairly small town, you guys got quite a scene going there, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's where, I mean, like I said, we're kind of like in the middle of nowhere. I was talking to you about where the Steamboat is, but there is a lot of really eager comics out of Denver. So not only have we found that there's a lot of people just like in this small town that are pretty talented and we put together shows with, but there's a lot of really talented, experienced comedians in Denver that are really looking for like chances to get showcased and stuff. So a lot of times we'll put together shows here with a lot of local talent, and then I'll call up somebody that I know is like on the verge maybe of being a headliner in Denver and is willing to make the trip up, and I don't have to pay him anything. And then they come up and we do a show here, or I pay them very little. I give them a ski pass, and that's usually good enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been great. This little scene all started off of a Facebook post. Our buddy Don Mazuka, who's on some of the earlier episodes, him and Brittany Kohlers, Brittany Joe Kohler. I guess I don't know exactly how she likes to go by. But Brittany, everyone in Steamboat knows Brittany. Just say Crazy Brittany. She's everywhere. And they got together and they're like, this could be fun. And they put out a Facebook post, and myself and a couple other people had done comedy once or twice before. So we're like, let's do it. And we crashed an open mic, like a music open mic. And there was a great turnout. It went really well. And then, like a bunch of assholes, we decided to just start like booking venues and doing comedy shows with a bunch of us who have all done comedy like 3 times, and it went pretty well. and there's kind of some ups and downs there. If you in the Steamboat Comedy podcast, the first probably, I don't know, 8 episodes or so are kind of us going through the journey of how we got started. And like our first show we did on Valentine's Day was a big success. And then we turned around and just booked another show a month later for St. Patrick's Day. And that was kind of a shit show. And then it's been some ups and downs. And then we've been networking with some other people. I brought in some comics from New York and, like I said, from Denver, from Chicago. And we're just trying to keep building this scene and make it kind of like a destination comedy scene. Because what we're starting to find out is that a lot of comedians like to go skiing. And so I'll be like, a lot of these guys, because we all, myself included, and a lot of the other comics, a lot of people just in town here work at the ski resort. And so we get kind of like hookups and stuff. Like I get cheap lift tickets. And so I'll tell a guy like, hey, I can't really pay you for a gig, but I'll buy you a plane ticket and I'll buy you a couple days worth of lift tickets. And then my roommate will get you free rentals. What do you say about that? And they're like, awesome, let's do it. And then they come out, do a comedy show. They get like $1,000 worth of vacation, and I only have to pay them 20% of that.
Mhm.
So we're trying to like build this kind of like symbiotic relationship between us and the mountain and other comedians. So
That's
far it's
really
been going great.
That's really cool. And it's, one of the things I've noticed following comedy is Denver's kind of becoming like LA and New York Junior. I mean,
yeah.
there's so many comics coming out of Denver, and that scene is getting to be where, it's tough to get mic time now because there's so many that are in line for it. So, having an alternative that isn't, several states away is really nice to be doing in your town.
Yeah, it's true. We've gone down and done some open mics down in Denver and had some good experiences, and in Boulder too.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's definitely. I mean, the whole medium is growing, but Denver as a scene, especially Denver as a city, just in general, has been blowing up in the last 20 years or so. If you go to the airport out there and you just look around, and there's just like vast fields with just like cookie cutter houses that you can tell they're like, oh shit, there's too many people. They just started like, crapping out houses in a row and everyone's moving into them. The whole town is just insane. But the comedy scene, it's definitely the biggest in this time zone, I would say. You know what I mean? It's kind of like New York, Chicago, Denver, LA.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to try to keep getting down there and doing more spots. We've been trying to network a little bit with some comedians. We're kind of getting our brand out there. There was a lot of good moves happening before, of course, the Rona took over, and that kind of slowed things down. But we got our foot in the door with that scene where we can kind of, have good opportunities for ourselves and for Denver comedians.
Mm-hmm. It's really great that you've got a group of you guys working together to put these shows on, and not a single person has to take on the whole weight of it. I've got a group of young people up here by me that are doing that, and it's really great because first of all, everybody brings something else to the table. So, somebody may be better at planning, and somebody may be better at art, and somebody may be better at whatever you do to get stuff out there, the media,
social medias,
marketing,
and
the promotion stuff. So it's nice to get a group of people together, as long as you can still get along.
Yeah, that's the tricky part sometimes.
Yeah,
we've had relatively little drama in the comedy club here, so that's good. But no, we've got one of our regulars on the scene, a guy named Mac. Really funny guy. He's a really good graphic designer, and he does a lot of our posters. Here, I'll show you. I got a bunch of posters on the wall. Check this guy out. So that's one he did for us.
Oh yeah, that's sweet.
Desperation Day. Yeah, and he did that all by hand. And then here's another one. That's our buddy Corey David from Denver. He did that one himself. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then the local bar, they did what? This one over here.
Very nice.
So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. We're really lucky to have a lot of talented people who are all kind of willing to help out. I do most of the heavy lifting from an organizing standpoint, and like trying to get funds and figure out what to do with when we do make any money, which is basically never, like what we do with our change to try to bribe people to come back and stuff. But yeah. No, it's a great group of people we got here, a great group of regulars who come out all the time, and we were doing nothing but growing up until obviously all of the shit at the fan and the world came to an end. But if we ever get out of this, I'm gonna hope that we keep on that same momentum.
Yeah, if people can just stay in the house for a while, we'll get over it. But I guess they
on your goddamn masks.
I just got a couple new ones today because I lost one, and I need a giant mask because I have a giant head. So I have to get them ordered special. I just got a couple new ones today, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, you're a big ass dude. Didn't I hear that on the other podcast? Aren't you like 6'6" or something like that?
Yeah, 6'5". Yeah, actually, I'm shrinking a little bit though. So I think I'm like 6'4" 3/4 now. So
if you were dyslexic, would be the same height, I think.
yeah. So did you grow up in the Steamboat area, or where did you grow up?
No, I grew up in the Midwest.
Okay.
Close to where you're at. I grew up just south of the Michigan border in Ohio, between Toledo and Bowling Green, if anybody knows where that is.
Yeah.
Basically in the farm fields out there. It's funny, I grew up in the sticks, basically, and I got a buddy who is from Nebraska, but he's from like Omaha. He's from like a big city. And everyone always talks like, "Oh, you're from like the cornfields in Nebraska, you big hillbilly." And then no one ever says that to me, even though I actually grew up in the cornfields. And he grew up in a city, and he's like, "Why is everyone giving me shit about this just because I'm from Nebraska?" But yeah, so I grew up out there, and then I went to college at Northern Michigan University, which is in the UP, way up there, and did that for a while. After college, I moved to Cincinnati for a couple of years, hanging out with my brother lives there. And then I was actually going to teach English in South Korea. And in the meantime, a friend of mine from college, Mr. Reed Belmonte, who I've recently talked into doing comedy with us, that's how I keep growing the series. I just pester all of my friends until they give it a shot. It's working out pretty well. But he was like, "Hey, before you go to Korea, you should come hang out with me in Glacier National Park in Montana." And I was like, "Okay." I had a couple months to kill, and I moved out there and fell in love with it. And in the meantime, the South Korea thing fell through, to make a long story short. And that was where I met this really cool community of people. And it was this seasonal work kind of scene. Like a lot of people work the national park circuits and stuff. And there's a big group of us that would spend every summer in Glacier National Park, and then every winter here in Steamboat Springs. So like a pipeline going back and forth. And I did that for 5 years. And it was great. I love Glacier National Park. If you ever get a chance to go, it's way the hell out in the middle of nowhere, but it's just the best. It's some of the most beautiful country on earth.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I miss it every day. But I kind of got sick of the company I was working for there. And also in the meantime, this comedy thing kind of started here. And I was like, I'm just going to live in Steamboat year round. So now I've been here for 2 years straight. And it's a great little town. It's got that same kind of seasonal vibe where, in the spring and the fall, we call it mud season, if you will. Everything kind of shuts down. It slows down. It's a really cool spot, man. It's a great town. It's beautiful in the summer too. Everyone comes here for the winter for the skiing, but in the summer, there's a lot to do outside. It's really green. Everyone floats the river downtown. And occasionally they do stand-up comedy.
Yeah, that's cool. It's amazing how many comics come from small towns. It just seems like that's a common denominator for so many comics. Your small town, there was a cornfield. I mean, that's exactly what I had. So it's neat to see that. As far as comedy is concerned, so when you first started doing stand-up, it was there in Steamboat, right?
No, well, the first time I did stand-up was in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay. Ann Arbor, Michigan. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Home of Bob Seger.
Is it really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Grew up in Ann Arbor. Yep.
Nice. I thought I grew up in Scatmandu, but I guess I don't know. But no, my girlfriend is in grad school there.
Okay.
She has been for several years, and I skipped out on one winter to move to Ann Arbor with her, just to kind of give the whole like regular world a shot again. And it fell through. I couldn't stand it. I had to be somewhere that, where everyone is a derelict like here. But but there was a comedy club there, and it had been something I'd always thought about, but I was always living in these random remote locations. And so I never really had a chance to do it. And we went to an open mic and watched it. And, it's one of those things where there's some good people and some bad people, and you think to yourself like, well, like even if I completely eat shit, I'll at least be better than that guy was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, what do I really have to lose?
Yeah.
And so I went up there and it went really well. And I was like, this is great. I invited out some friends I was working with there at the time and got some good responses. And then I ended up moving back to Steamboat. And that's when the random Facebook post happened. And I was like, it was actually a friend of mine had known that I had done it and he tagged me in it. And so then I got on board with that and met all these people. And the rest is history, as they say.
That's cool. Now, growing up, who were your comedy influences? Who were the ones that made you want to do that?
I mean, the urge just to be funny was a combination of my dad and Jim Carrey, probably. Okay. And maybe a little Mike Myers and Farley, those kind of people. Yeah. Just always like that. Always just like, making my friends laugh. And I was into performing. I was really into acting as a kid. I used to do a lot of theater, things like that. And then life just kind of happened, and you go to college, you go through the motions, but that all went away, or at least was dormant for a while, and then it came back out after college. When I got a chance to do some stand up in Ann Arbor, several years later, I didn't do my first bit. It was the week after my 29th birthday.
Okay.
So, but then like influences, those are some of my favorites. I'm a big fan of like Doug Stanhope for like actual stand-up comedy. Stanhope, I was always like George Carlin, even when I was a kid. But I wasn't super into stand-up comedy as a kid, just because it wasn't really prevalent. You know what I mean? It was more just like comedic actors and Saturday Night Live and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the whole heyday of stand-up kind of, that was like 82 to 89. That's that's when Seinfeld came up and Leno and all those folks came up during that time. And then it was kind of a vast wasteland for a while, but that's when all the comedy clubs actually started sprouting up after the heyday. And they were too late. The big comedy clubs obviously were there, but these small ones like the what did we have? We didn't have a Zanies. We had a it was like a Laugh comedy. It was a franchise comedy club, and it went on for a few years, and I saw some good comics there, but it just wasn't sustainable because they had these giant rooms that they had to pay for, and pay for the comic and pay for the booze and all that kind of stuff, and it just wasn't something that was sustainable. And then we started getting comedy in smaller rooms around here, and that works a lot better. So it's kind of a weird evolution that it's not so much the club stuff anymore as you're going to find comedy at a brewery. You're going to find it at a bar, a VFW. You're going to find it all those places now instead of a dedicated comedy club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. There's definitely still the best places to go are some of the dedicated ones, but I think a lot of places are just a lot of like eager young comedians, which is basically what we're doing here. Will just be like, hey, I'm going to go to the bar down the street and say, do you guys want to do comedy on Thursdays? And then the bar's like, sure, we got basically nothing to lose. And then they organize it and that kind of thing. I feel like that's just so much easier than having to have a dedicated club and, investing in it. So it kind of makes sense to have that kind of organic growth in that kind of way. Yeah, I've kicked around the idea of like maybe someday we'll start a comedy club here in Steamboat, and then I'm like, who the hell is gonna be there? like I got like 6 people that I have to beg just to come to open mic here half the time. And don't get me wrong, we have good turnouts most of the time, but like in the mud season month, I'll be like, hey, you guys, anybody come in? And it'll be me doing 45 minutes and some guy I picked out of the crowd. But yeah, that's great. So for your kind of scene, is it all mics that you're running yourself, or what is that like, or where do you go?
So we have a comedy club that is part of a bar diner. It's called the Drop Comedy Club. And what they did is they built a room on, and they've got curtains and stuff like that. And it seats, I think they can do like maybe up to 80 people, 70 or 80 people in there. If they take the tables out and just put chairs, and you know, they get some pretty big name comedians. They get a lot from Chicago because we're so close to Chicago. But you know, I've seen Stuart Huff there. I think Bob Zaney's done that one. I mean, they get really good ones and then really good up and coming ones. So you get a real good variety. So they've got that. And then I've put on a few shows myself. You mentioned shit show. Mine have all been pretty much shit shows. I did have one that had a really good turnout, and my thing is I want some of these comics that haven't experienced getting paid to understand what it means to get paid. So I always do $5 at the door, and I split stuff up equally between them, and that way they can go away with something. I mean, you know, it's been $15 and up to $30, and that's it. But you know, it's something, and they know what it means to get paid, because I think that's what comics forget to ask sometimes, and they think that, you know, their 10 or 20 minutes on stage isn't worth anything. But when you think about all the work that you put in to get that tight 10, tight 20, that's a lot of hours. So you should get paid.
Sure. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd get paid a whole bunch every time I do comedy.
Yep.
But it doesn't always work that way. I mean, we have had some shows where we've charged at the door, and it's still had good attendance. But usually, I mean, I usually sink so much money into promotions and things like that at the end of the day, we only make a few bucks. And most of the guys around here are pretty understanding, and they're like, just put it towards, you know, like new equipment or new, like trying to get people out here. Anyone's pretty much on board, especially, and it's one of these things too, that like right before the Corona hit, we were kind of starting to get on like more of like a consistent, we're all actually bringing in a little revenue from what we're doing. That all kind of crashed. The last, we did 2 shows right before the pandemic hit the town here. It was I did a show. I had 2 lined up for a Thursday and a Friday. We had a Thursday was a free. We tried to do a storytelling show. Is like in the style of This Is Not Happening. Like if you know the Comedy Central show, yep. Which we actually, in one of the podcasts, the one we did with Sean Patton, he was coming through and we hit him up. We actually called Ari Shafir on the phone at the end, and he was like, we like got his blessing to use it. It was pretty cool. he was just like in a green room. He's like, yeah, what do you want? Yeah, sure. Maybe Comedy Central will pick you up. Bye. Like, yeah, we talked to Ari Shafir. So we did that, and they had a great turnout. But then, like I said, that was right when shit was starting to get crazy. And then Friday, the next day, we had a show, and I charged $10 at the door. And we only sold 19 tickets, which normally this venue will max at about 100 people.
Yeah.
And so that was just a big bummer. And nobody wanted to go outside. I ended up losing my ass on the money on that after I paid a bunch of comics from Denver to come up. So it's for me, it's like I'd like to pay everyone, but breaking even sometimes is a little difficult.
Yeah.
You know. So,
and as long as everybody that you're working with's on board, you know, the reason why I want these, yeah, I mean, these are just kids. I mean, these guys some of them are, you know, barely 21, and I just want them to understand that, you know, they've got some worth, and I don't need any money, so I want them to get some money, and I know people, so if I can get people to to let me do it and get people to come, then I can bring them up. So that's the whole thing that I'm trying to do. And I did one, it was really cool. I hired a guy to a professional videographer, and I did a showcase, and I gave everybody 10 minutes, and I had him do separate videos for each comic, and high quality stuff. And then I got those chopped up and put into a OneDrive and gave it to all of them. And instead of paying them, I paid him. And, I made just enough to pay him. I think I had to kick in like $5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now they've got a high quality video that they can send to clubs and stuff.
And that's great. And a lot of them probably would have had to pay a good chunk of money to do that on their own anyway. So,
yeah,
if just doing good material will pay for someone recording a good material, I'd say that's a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. The bad part was they recorded me too, and I just did a shit job. So that's a waste.
That's funny. Yeah, I try to record most things that we do. There is on steamboatcomedy.com. There's a couple of our live shows that are recorded on there. We did one at the Chief Theater last summer. So there's a public, I guess it's not technically public, but a mostly public theater downtown that fits about 140 people. Actually about 150. And we did a free show there last summer and sold the place out. They're bringing in extra chairs, and I paid a guy to film that one, and it was totally worth it. We all kind of pitched in. And so that's great. And so now everyone who was in that show can direct their family and everyone to the website and watch their bits. And I just uploaded a couple more. We did a show on New Year's Eve that the theater actually organized themselves. And they just kind of contracted us, each of us, $50 to be in it. And that was another sold out one. It was awesome. And then, got a thing on my phone. Away. And we just finally got the recordings of that. So all of that's on the YouTube page too. So we've had pretty good luck with getting our stuff recorded. And I've been trying to do, that's another kind of draw to try to get more people in, like, hey, you can show your friends that you did it. Yeah. That kind of thing, because it doesn't really cost anything as long as you already got the camera,
Yeah. That's great. So if somebody comes to see you do comedy, what should we expect out of your act?
Some amateur bullshit. I don't know. My personal act is kind of more, I wouldn't say that it like toes the line of being clean, but it's not, like I could probably keep it relatively clean. It's a lot of like, I talk a lot about like relationship stuff, kind of like observational, some storytelling stuff like that. That's more of my wheelhouse. I'm not great on the one-liners. We got a guy who comes and does a lot of our shows, a guy named Matt Newland from around here. Hilarious guy, and he's really good. He does the real like kind of like not one-liners, but like maybe like two-liners. You know what I mean? Yeah. Great with the setup and the punchline, and he's got a great dry delivery. And I like that kind of humor, but it's not natural for me. It's not my kind of style.
Yeah.
I'm more of a storyteller, and I like to kind of like get animated. I do a bit about girls who go to the gym and only work out their butts. And which I don't know if you've seen it. I just call them butt girls. They're everywhere. And I'll get up on stage and I kind of do all the motions of all the ass exercises they do and things like that. I like being silly and falling down and shit like that. What about you? What's your style like?
That sounds good. Actually very close to the same. I mean, a lot of mine's relationship stuff and raising kids stuff. The funny thing is during this virus stuff, I don't know if you had the same trouble I had, but it's hard to write because you don't see an end to it, and you don't see any reason to do it. So I'm actually forcing myself every morning to write out some of those 1 and 2 liners, just so that I'm doing something. And I'll do like pull up the USA Today site and just do stuff on the news and stuff like that. And I'll never use it, but I've done a couple Zoom mics where I did that, and it actually went okay. So I'm doing that, but my real stuff is really the same as you. It's stories. It's, I've been with my wife for 37 years and I've got 2 kids that are grown. So I've got that stuff, and I am starting to write a little bit about my childhood and stuff like that too. But, I'm clean. And the funny thing is, I cuss a lot as a regular, the autocorrect on my phone. If I type the word FN, fuck just comes up now. So that's the way I text. But I've always thought that I should be clean on stage just because of the way I look. Because I don't look like a guy who would talk dirty. I look like a pharmacist or a basketball coach or something. So,
well, you could be like Bob Saget and just throw everyone a curveball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Got you the dad on that show? And he's up there talking about fisting and whatever nasty shit he talks about.
Yeah. But it's funny. The comics around here will give each other notes, and I've got a bit where I talk about my wife and I. Somebody says we don't have anything in common. I talk about what we have in common, and I mix a lot of young language with old language. So I said we don't front, and I go into she don't front, I don't front, and one of the comics said you should really punctuate that with, yeah, we don't fuck around. And I tried it a couple times and it went really well, but I didn't feel like it fit. It didn't fit my image. So I had to lose that. And it's always there in my back pocket, but I just don't feel good about inserting that when I've been clean the whole time. So
sure.
Yeah.
You can do a little mix of the old and new and be like, these whippersnappers don't fuck around,
and that's one of the things I'm doing. I'm just looking for words.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes you just got to throw shit out and see what sticks.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. Being clean, or at least writing clean, and you could always like dirty it up, sprinkle a little dirt on there. But it gives you, I actually talked to our last 2 podcasts ago, talking with our buddy Pat Schrewer. Just being clean or having the option of it just opens so many doors for you. You know what I mean? So it's a good habit to get into. And then if you're in, a club with a bunch of young kids and they're, rowdy frat boys, and you can always be like, fucking, right? Huh?
Yeah.
Dirty words. And switch it up is easy to do. It's easier to do that than the other way around, than trying to clean up a dirty act.
The thing is everybody wants to be true to themselves, and I think you can approach like tough subjects and still stay clean. And you can do sex, you can do racism, you can do everything that's going on today. You can do that and stay clean, or you can go the other way and just go on a total tirade and you use all the words. And both of them are great. None of them offend us. But it's just what you choose to do.
Sure. Yeah, you got to find your voice. I mean, that's really part of what it's about. It's funny. I was, who was it? We were just talking the other day, and somebody was asking me, they're kind of like, oh, what comic do you compare yourself to, and that kind of thing. And I just don't, I don't know. I never think about writing anything in any voice other than my own, which I guess sounds kind of cheesy, but it's like, like I'm not doing a character when I'm on stage, I'm just being myself. And sometimes I don't even know what it is, because I don't always know what it looks like from the outside, other than when I like watch it later. But Yeah, I don't know, the whole like finding your voice is one thing, but the whole like doing a character thing was always kind of foreign to me. Outside of like an
That-
impersonation.
right.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is it's great if it works. So, let's bring Larry the Cable Guy in. So,
Yeah.
that worked for him, but that's the only thing he can be now. And you just know that he gets sick of saying "get her done," and
I would hope so. I'm sick of it.
yeah. And
Yeah.
but that's comedy for the masses, and he obviously, I guess if I was at his stage when he started and I found out I could buy a couple houses and boats and all that kind of stuff by saying "get her done," I might do it too. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. It's one of those things people can shit on Larry the Cable Guy, but it's like, yeah, he's also like a multi-millionaire and everyone loves him, and he does commercials and movies and stuff. So it's like, like, is he really doing it wrong? I don't think he is. I think he's doing just fine.
And Carrot Top's had a show in Vegas for how many years? He's got so much money he doesn't know what to do with it.
I would love, the last time I was in Vegas, I tried really hard to see Carrot Top because I've heard his show is so great, but it was sold out. I couldn't see it. Me and my dad were going to see it, and we waited too long. It was sold out like 2 days ahead of time.
Did you get a chance to see Penn and Teller when you were there?
No, God, I wish. No, I didn't get to see any comedy in Vegas. I wanted to see any of those guys, plus the amazing Jonathan has been there forever, and I've heard that his act is just the best.
Did you watch his documentary?
No, I heard about it though. He's a wild man.
Yeah, it's on Hulu, and the guy that did the documentary, he was with him for a few years on doing that, and he's supposed to be dying of cancer, and it turns out that may not be the case, and he's just saying that to get sympathy or whatever. But man. He's done more cocaine in his life than I think 30 other people who did a lot of cocaine.
Could be in the cocaine Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's the cure for cancer, is you just douse it in cocaine every day. Who knows? Yeah, wow. Yeah, I've been meaning to see that. I've heard good things about it. But yeah, I haven't seen a lot of big acts in person. I saw Mark Norman in Ann Arbor. He was great. That was before I really even knew who he was too. I was really bummed. Sean Patton came through town and everybody got to see him but me. I got to hang out with him, which was cool, but I didn't just see him until I saw a little bit of stuff online, but I had to work that night and all my friends went and hung out with him and got to see his show. But yeah, I'm just hoping to bring more people here. Just find the famous people I like and be like, come here, and then I can watch you.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you need if you got a Twitter account, tweet to Norman that he needs to do my podcast. I've been bugging him. I even put a video together to come on, and he's dodging me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's one of the ones. Word on the street is that Norman likes to ski, so I'm going to try to maybe coax him out here at some point in time.
Yeah, there you go.
See. I'll have to bring you out too.
Yeah, it's great that you do the podcast there because once you snare them, then you can corner them to do the podcast too.
Yeah, I mean, it usually works out fine. We're like, because there's not like I don't want to say there's not a lot to do here because there is. There's a lot of cool stuff to do here. But if you get done skiing and you're just hanging out waiting to go to a bar at night, I'll just be like, hey, you want to come be on my podcast for an hour, half an hour? And like, sure. And I basically set my room up here to be a studio with, I got like soundproof tiles and I got a green screen for shooting some videos and things. I got some projects coming up. So yeah, we're like, come on over, we'll give you a beer. We can talk for 30 minutes. And most of them are like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. Yeah. So works out pretty well.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. As far as what you've got going on as far as social media and stuff like that, where can people find the Steamboat Comedy page and all that?
Sure. We have a Twitter, but no one updates it. By no one, I mean I don't update it. But there's We have steamboatcomedy.com is the website that links to our YouTube page and a lot of other things. YouTube page is good, but we pretty active on Instagram especially, and our Facebook page. If you want to find our events and stuff too. So yeah, it's all at Steamboat Comedy.
Okay, cool.
And the podcast is everywhere too.
Yeah, I found that Instagram's really kind of the big deal now. It seems to be the one that gets the most likes and people actually see the stuff.
Yeah, it's very digestible, if you will. Like it doesn't take a lot to update. You just take a silly picture. It's easy to get stuff out. It's easy for people to just look at it and be like, ho, and they get everything they need and then scroll to the next dopamine hit, you know? So yeah, it's Instagram is probably what we do the most. And then if there's like more like announcements, that kind of thing is going to be on the Facebook page as well.
Cool. I just liked the Facebook page today. I found it and liked it.
Well, thank you, sir. What about you? Where can our listeners find your stuff?
I'm at, well, first of all, I'm on all the apps, and I'm on the btbpc.com because I couldn't get the Behind the Bits URL because somebody already had it. They didn't have a website, but they had it. So it's the btbpc.com. And that links to all my socials. Everything is at Behind the Bits, except for my Twitter is the BTBPC. So, and I'm pretty active on all of them. I actually, right now, I'm combining the Behind the Bits YouTube. I'm putting this stuff on there, and I'm also putting on some of my comedy stuff too.
Nice. Cool, man. Yeah, looking forward to seeing it and checking it out. The last podcast you did, double checking those guys' names. It was the one before that with Big Bova and Big Earn, those guys.
Yeah.
They were funny. Those are funny dudes. I really like that podcast.
That took a shitload of editing, I'll tell you, because everybody was cutting out. I had like 30 seconds of silence, and that one, it was I had about an hour and a half recorded, and I think I took it down to like 48 minutes by the time I edited out everything you couldn't hear.
Oh geez, yeah, I've definitely spent a lot of time editing podcasts. I don't as much anymore. I'm just like, because I used to go through and like cut out all the ums and the likes and even all of that stuff, but now I don't give a shit. People can hear me say that's how I talk. The worst was I tried to we invited our buddy Robbie Bernstein from New York. He came out here to do a show, did a podcast with us, but we didn't do it until after our big show. We did it like midnight because he's leaving the next morning. We're all hammered, and I started trying to talk politics and just random shit, and I swear to God, I've never wanted to like hurt myself so badly as the next day listening to it again. I was like, I am such a fucking idiot. And I probably cut out at least an hour of it. It was so, at least, I mean, it felt like an hour. It was probably only 20 minutes. But God damn. Now I just try to be not hammered going in, and then it saves me a lot afterwards, you know?
Yeah, I've cut some of my stuff out. I very rarely cut out anything a guest says unless they ask me to. But I let it go. I have found this service called Descript that you can upload your podcast to, and it does a transcription, but it finds all the ums, and you can just delete them, and it's like one fell swoop.
No shit.
Yeah,
that's pretty nice.
I think it's only $10 a month. I haven't actually subscribed yet. I'm actually doing free accounts because they give you 2 hours of free stuff, and I'm just doing free accounts with all my different emails right now.
There you go. Just make infinity emails. Behind the Bits 1, Behind the Bits 2, Behind the Bits 3. Yeah, that's pretty cool. What'd you say it was called again?
Descript. Yeah,
nice.
It's DE and Script. And the funny thing is the first one I loaded in there was 348 ums, and I couldn't believe it. So I'm trying very hard not to say it anymore.
It's a habit I've been trying to, the ums and the likes.
Yep.
Likes, when I listen to myself, especially as soon as you start to notice it, you can't unhear it, and you'll hear people. I was just floating down the river, and I passed this girl, and she's like, and it was like, and they liked this, and it was like that, and I was like, there was more likes than there was not likes in that sentence.
Right.
Like it's insane. So yeah, I've been trying really hard to cut those out, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And the nice thing about that program is, if you're getting any better or not.
Yeah. There you go.
Less than 348, then I'm getting a little better.
Have a goal to go down 20 likes per show.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
And I think they have updated it. There was an update that came up that you can highlight certain words besides So it's worth it to check out, because it spits out the stuff, and it's seamless. It doesn't even look like you edited the stuff out. And that's a lot easier than going through every second and saying, okay, I don't like this, I don't like that, and taking it out.
Yes. But of course, if you did it there, you would just say, I don't this, I don't that.
Yeah.
So call you like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ruin all your similes, turn them into metaphors.
Yep.
Oh, cool. I got to get going, boss. This has been great. Love
it was great talking to you.
It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, and we'll send all the Steamboat Comedy listeners your way. Behind the Bits, check it out. Like I was saying before, checking out your previous episodes, really funny stuff. I got to check the one with Mark Masters too. He's a buddy. He every time we put out a podcast, he'll send me a text. He's like, "Oh, great job!" So I'm like, "Thanks, Mark." And I've been trying to direct people his way. He's just one of those guys. He's so enthusiastic about comedy.
Yeah,
it's great. You know what I mean? It's good energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's another one that started later in life, so that's cool.
Yeah. How old did you say you were when you started?
50.
That's pretty good. Nice round number.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
56 and not a whole lot better, but I was getting there right before the Rona.
Yeah, right. Well, when it comes down to it, you can always just blame coronavirus. That's
no doubt. All right, Kyle. Well, it was great talking to you.
Thank you, Scott. We got to do this again. Just let me know anytime you want.